Yay! First video that shows all of me. This is the third attempt at trying to make this video. I finally made notes. I was tagged by John, JNL0, to explain about how to become a homesteader. I really don't have an idea of how to even begin saying that. First of all, I really don't consider myself a homesteader, and I'm not a survivalist, and I'm not a prepper, and I'm not a bushcrafter, and I'm not a gun fan. But I do some things that all of those groups do, but I don't claim ownership in any of them. This is a town of about 225 people. We're out in the middle of the corn patch in Iowa, and the way things have been done around here forever is you get ready for wintertime. You do whatever you have to in order to reduce your operating costs, to lower your cost of living. Neighbors driving by with his tractor. Should be quiet now. So we plant a big garden, and we do everything that we can to grow and produce as much of our own food as we can. This is I live in town, inside the city limits, so I have city utilities available to hook up to. There's water attached to this building. There's sanitary sewer attached to this building, but they're both turned off because I don't need them. But there's sanitary sewer. There's water. There's a storm drain available to the property. So there are modern conveniences available here. But I'm also considering solar power and wind generation, because there's a lot of times that the power goes out here. And I also have, this property sits on 3 outlots, which is the old way of measuring property when towns are first being drawn up. This town was first plotted out to be a residential town in the 1860s, and there was only 50-some people here, so they didn't need a whole bunch of actual lots. So they planned on growth. They planned that the town was going to grow, so they made outlots. Well, I've got 3 outlots here, and they're about 120 feet wide and a quarter of a mile long. And that amounts to a lot of ground inside of a city limits. There's behind this shop that way, there is 9 acres of tillable ground that I have rented out for row cropping right now, because right now I just don't want to buy a tractor, and I don't want to buy an implement. I don't implement to pull behind the tractor. I don't want to buy a planter. I don't want to buy equipment to sow seed or to sow oats. And then I don't want to buy a baler. So, once you start farming, your expenses, they compound very fast. And you need to farm for a long time in order to pay for that equipment. So there you see a lot of farm equipment that's 40 and 50 years old. And I really don't need that expenditure right now. So there's of the 9 acres, there's 9 acres. There's an acre and a half that I sold off to another guy who's got a house over there. There's a roughly 3/4 of an acre for my house, and this used to be a commercial business, and it's sitting on 3/4 of an acre. So there's the ground adds up, and then I go, you go through and make it work. Background. Background starts clear back in the 1960s. I was born in the early 60s. At that time, my dad worked for a company that made custom sausages and hams. And he worked at that job. It was a real comfortable job. He worked an 8-hour day, and he was home. And then in the early 1970s, there was a group of young workers up there who well, I won't get completely negative, but let's just say that they unionized the shop, and in the midst of their strikes and unionizations and claims and collective bargaining, they managed to collectively bargain themselves completely out of a job. So that included my dad. So starting in the early 1970s, he had been doing repair work up in the house garage. At that time, getting 100,000 miles out of a car was it was rare. At 100,000 miles, most cars were ready for the junk pile. So at about 50,000 miles, what you do is you pull the engine out, you throw a set of rings in, you fix the bearings, throw some gaskets on it so the oil doesn't leak out onto the ground, and then you put the motor back in. And then you would repower the car for another 50,000 miles, or as many miles as you got out of it. So we took that shop and moved it down here to this building. And we started selling gasoline, had a gas station. We did service work out just behind this door. We had a small engine shop. We sold lawn and garden equipment, serviced anybody's lawnmower that brought in. We sold 4 brands. We did the service and upkeep on those brands, but if anybody brought something with a different color in, we worked on that too. So you learn to figure out how to fix things when you don't have the owner's manual to tell you how to go about doing it. And that's background for how to be a homesteader. You have to know how to do things for yourself. So I worked the family business until the early 1980s, and then decided that I wanted to do something bigger, so I went to school, formal school, for 2 years to learn how to work on bigger stuff. So I got formal training to work on truck and diesel, farm equipment, marine, marine as in things that float, equipment, engines, gears, drivetrains, transmissions, all kinds of things. And then the other reality hit. I graduated from college, I got ready to enter the workforce, and then there was the recession of 1982 hit. And I found out that being a young kid straight out of tech school, that if somebody around here in small town America had the choice of hiring somebody that had a family and had 5 years of experience, they were going to get hired first before the kid that was straight out of tech school that got hired. So my alternative was the military. I spent 10 years in the United States Navy, and then when I went in, I figured, well, mechanics wasn't as reliable as I thought it was going to be. So I switched careers, and I became an operations specialist, and I dealt with information and technology, and I watched a radar go around quite a bit, except that was only the first ship that had a radar sweep that actually went around in a circle. All the rest of them were phased arrays and very high-tech and very digitalized and very classified. After 10 years in the military, I got out and realized that I could have easily started working for one of the military. There's military vendors all over the place that want you to sell their equipment, want you to work and test on their equipment, want you to ride a ship and show other sailors how to use their equipment. I had many job offers for those, and some of the people that I was in the military with, I'm in touch with them now, and a lot of them have spent 20-30 years working for those companies. That's not me. I'm not big city. I can't stand the big city life. So I came back here to the corn patch. And I'm on the same property that I grew up on. And I don't know how to say it. Everything that I've done so far has prepared me for what I'm doing now. You know, I'm just living in a small town and doing what I need to in order to live within my means. I don't carry a debt load. I don't. If I don't have the money to buy it, I don't. So I grow a garden. I bargain hunt. I know farmers down the road that have beef, that have pork, that have poultry, that have goats. I hunt. I fish. I camp out, but I'm not a bushcrafter. You know, there's a lot of things that I do, and it's all about economy and being thrifty. So, getting back to my list, I've already gone through what I'm not. But what I do is I own property. The rest of it I've already covered. I have another video. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to edit it. That shows what I have around here and how big my garden is. I've got about a half an acre in a vegetable garden, and that produces a lot of produce. I've learned by growing a lot of produce that there's some things that I do know how to grow well, and there's some things that just don't work out that good for me. One thing that doesn't really work for me is corn, so I don't plant corn. But I live in the corn patch, and I don't have to go more than a half a mile in any direction, and I can find somebody that's got more than an acre of sweet corn planted. So that it doesn't make sense to me to plant my own sweet corn. So I take the ground and I put it in something else. There's a bad bug problem around here for squash beetles, so I plant ground vines here. I don't have to, I don't spray insecticides, but my ground vines don't get ate up. Why? I don't have an answer for that, because I get asked that by lots of people. What do you do? What do you do to keep squash bugs off? It's like, well, I don't do anything. I plant them. I make sure they get enough water, and I harvest when they're ready. Another thing that grows really well for me is tomatoes. Tomatoes and peppers. So I grow basically a salsa garden. Tomatoes, peppers, onions, and with those, I can take those and trade for whatever I want. This year I'm going to be planting some row crops like beans, green beans. I don't really like radishes either, so I'm not gonna plant those. But it's whatever I think is going to be a good match that year. I tried turnips and rutabagas last year, and they grew good, but I'm not going to grow them again. So I'll go back to onions. I'll try leeks again, because they didn't grow last year, but they've got to grow. So we'll figure it out. I'm not gonna buy nearly as much seed, but we'll get some and get them in the ground. Mainly because I like to make soups. And leek is a really good soup ingredient. Produce from the garden. I don't sell any of it, but I do trade it. And the reason I don't sell any is because once you actually accept money for produce, then you've become a commercial entity, and then you're required to have a state tax license. And then once you're licensed with the state for sales taxes, then there's rules and regulations that don't apply to a private garden, but suddenly apply to a commercial garden. So I don't sell any of my produce, but I move a lot of produce. I know who the sick and infirm are, the old, the sick, the infirm. They'll always get garden produce from me. People that are just poor, yeah, I'll send them produce too, but they can do chores. They can come down here and help me weed, and come down here and help me plant. They can help me work up the dirt. There's all kinds of things that they can do, and I'm not going to subsidize laziness. But I understand being broke. I really do. And I'm not gonna let any little kid go hungry because I'm being obstinate or stubborn. So yeah, and at the end of the day, you know, if I have extra, I will provide to those who need it. But I plant the garden for myself, so once my cupboards are full, then other people can benefit from it. But I learned a long time ago that if you don't take care of yourself, nobody else is going to. So I don't give away the store until after my shelves are full. That might sound selfish, but you know, that's just the way it is. I'm thrifty. When I get extra money, I buy things that benefit me. And for the most part, that means tools. I've got a shop. Behind this door is a shop full of tools. And when I have extra cash, the little things, they add up pretty fast, and then you need someplace to put them. So I've got all kinds of tools. I bargain hunt for food. There's a grocery store 6 miles down the way. He sells BOGO deals for beef and pork. So you go into his freezer, and if there's a 6-pound pork roast in there that he's got marked, you pick it up and you'll pay full price for it. But then you pick up another piece and it's free. So if you can grab 2 big pieces, then you've just got, you know, 12-15 pounds of pork for half price. And that's a good deal to me. So that's one of the ways that I'm thrifty. Another way is clothing and clothing repairs. I'm not. When I buy a set of clothes, they've got a lifetime service contract. I'm going to wear those pants or those shoes until they're absolutely not serviceable anymore, and that means that even my shoes, I do my own shoe repairs. Put soles back on, seam up the leather sidewalls, all of that. That's one of the reasons why I got the leather working tools, is to do my own shoe repairs. My version of homesteading is just being thrifty, and it just means living in a small town and living within your means. Granted that in the wintertime, as long as the water keeps running in my tap, there's enough food in my house that I don't need to leave the house for 4 months. You know, I don't need beans, meat, milk. I might need to leave to get milk, but other than that, there's enough food. There's enough food put away right now that I don't need to buy groceries for 4 months. So thrifty works into being prepared, I guess. But it's not. I'm not preparing for the end of the world. I'm preparing for the lights going out for a week, which happened last year in January. We didn't have electricity for 8 days. Boy, wasn't that fun when it was below zero. But we managed, and we made heat, and I learned how recharge my phone using the car, which really isn't a big trick because I had all that stuff to begin with, but I never had to use it until then. This is starting to get really long, so we're gonna cut it off here. I was gonna show the property out back. I'll make another video and show that in another section, mainly because this is a long video. I was tagged by John, J0. My tag, I've talked to him already. It's his channel name is Fixed by Doc, and I'll put the link down in the information section. He lives on a off-grid homestead in Pennsylvania. That's big state. I'll let him narrow that down a little bit further as far as what part of Pennsylvania. He's a retired Army medic. He's got a wife named Addie, and she's got 4 years of military service. I'm not sure which branch. He's got a service-related injury, and they live off-grid in a cabin in Pennsylvania. They use solar power and wind generation. They've got livestock. They're looking to get more livestock, and they're showing their progress in video. There's a lot of things that they're learning how to do, and some things they're making mistakes on, and other things they're getting right. So it's a really good channel to watch, and he's going to have a really good viewpoint on what being a homesteader is all about. And we'll just cut this short, and if you've got questions you can ask them, and I'll try to answer them in comments or in another video.